In this video, you will get the full negotiation framework, everything that you will ever need for your all negotiations. I guess if you are here, you already saw many videos on a similar topic. In many of them, the content is right, but sometimes they're just too academic. If you agree with me, then you are in the right place. Welcome to Cobblestone Negotiations, a channel where we discuss negotiations in a plain and simple language. But before we start with the step-by-step guidance of the negotiation process itself, I will first give you a general overview of what you can expect from us on this channel going forward. First of all, in terms of video dynamics, we will post a new video every week. And secondly, how we see negotiations. For us, negotiation is a long-term game. So advices about how to become successful in a few simple steps, those advices you won't hear from us. For that, you for sure have some other channels. So our negotiation framework consists of 16 principles, which are further divided into 4 phases. The first phase is the preparation for the negotiation. The second phase is the beginning of the negotiation. Then the third phase is the main body, where the most of the give and take is performed. And the last phase is the closing phase. On top of these 16 principles, our framework consists of the 4 universal negotiation truths. And those are something that do not call for your action like principles do, but you need to be aware of them all the time if you want to be a successful negotiator. Today, I will give you a general overview of our negotiation framework, and in the later videos, we will dive into each one of the principles into more details. But what distinguishes us, what we do differently in this channel, is that we will take real-life situations, let's say dispute between states or between different territories or between companies, and we will analyze these situations through the lenses of our principles. With these technicalities out of our way, let's start with the real deal. As I already mentioned, we divided our principles into 4 phases, and the first phase is the preparation for the negotiations. Although I must say that all of our principles are relevant for each one of the phases, but they are the most relevant for the dedicated phase. So our first phase consists of 3 principles. And our first principle is be sure to know your exact BATNA. And for some of you that didn't recognize the word itself, BATNA, it stands for the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. But here we are underlying exact BATNA, which means that you should know the exact alternative that you can turn to if the negotiations fall through. So the exact alternative, not the sum of all the possible alternatives that are out there, but the exact one that you can really turn to immediately if something goes wrong. The second principle is know the real decision makers. And this principle will help you in at least 2 ways. Firstly, it will prevent you from wasting your time, and secondly, it will prevent you from negotiating with yourself. And I will give you just a quick example for this. If you're negotiating with a counterparty and from your side you have all the power or the authority to reach the final agreement, and you believe that the other side has the same authority, and when you reach the agreement that you believe is the final one, the other side will just say, oh, this agreement is good, it's nice, but I still need the green light from my boss. And what will happen next? He will come back to you and he will ask more concessions. With our third principle, we are concluding the preparation phase. And the principle itself is never allow yourself unlimited authority. And this can maybe sound a little bit contradictory to the previous one, but again, it depends on what side of the table you are. And this principle will help you from rushing into making an important decisions on the spot. Now, when we are prepared and confident, we can finally meet our counterparty. And the first principle of the 3 in the beginning phase of the negotiation is always start in a friendly tone. And this is important because if you start in a friendly tone and discussion between you and your counterparty becomes more competitive, you can easily switch to a more competitive tone and still to be natural. But if you start aggressively or like a bully, and then as maybe part of your negotiation strategy, you switch to a friendly guy, then you will probably lose your credibility. Although you started friendly, in every moment you need to know why you are exactly here. And this principle will remind you on that. Discover underlying interests instead of fighting over positions. And it's easy in the heat of the moment to get into very hard bargaining wars with the counterparty when in the same time your interests, your and your counterparty interests may be not too far away. The last principle in the second phase is one of my favorite, and it states, care but not that much. And this phrase we saw for the first time in this context in Herb Cohen's You Can Negotiate Anything. But probably you heard about this principle in this form or something similar, like control your emotions or never be needy for a deal, which is a very powerful message. Or maybe you heard the classic always be ready to leave the table. But if you actually stayed at the table, then you're entering the third negotiation phase, a phase where the rubber meets the road. And our first principle in this phase is resist being the smartest guy in the room. I know it can sound a little bit odd because even from our childhood we were taught to be the guy that knows it all, to respond all the questions, to know all the answers. But basically we are saying to you, talk less and listen more. And while you are in silence, this is the best moment for our eighth principle. And it's make your counterparty invest in your relationship. And when we say investment, we mean in terms of time and energy, money, and emotions. Even if you want to make an ultimatum, which we rarely advise, if you want that ultimatum to stick, you need to make your adversary to invest in your relationship first. As you probably noticed so far, this third phase is a lot about talking less and listening more. And the next principle goes in the same direction. Learn not to break the silence, which means when you are negotiating with someone and when you tell your terms, just stop. Do not explain yourself, do not elaborate further, do not try to help your counterparty in any way. You are not here for that. Although in negotiation, listening is gold, but in some moment you do need to say something, and in this moment, always negotiate multiple issues simultaneously. And even when you are negotiating apparently one and only thing, even in that moment you can separate this thing into several small pieces so you can trade across issues and eventually get the most important for you. The last principle in the third phase and our 11th is rooted in human psychology. And it goes like this. Make them work for your concessions. When you're dealing with a tough opponent, with a person that is really hard to deal with, it's easy to believe that if you give in this time and make a concession from your part, that your counterparty will see this concession as a favor from you. And in the next similar situation, he will return this favor. But usually it doesn't go like this. Usually if you give in once, this will set a precedent for all your future relations. And in the next similar situation, he will expect more from you. Now we reached the final phase of the negotiation. And we already spent a lot of time with our adversary. And it's easy to believe mistakenly that our adversary is actually our friend. Although usually our adversary is not our friend. He is here just to achieve his goals as we are here to achieve our goals. And the best outcome in negotiation is if we can help each other to achieve our goals. So if your adversary for any reason believes that you have some power, you should never diffuse this sentiment of his by transforming yourself into a paper tiger, which is our 12th principle. Instead, you should always play on that power card. Very often it is very clear that on the other side of the table is not our friend. In this situation, very often that other party is a more powerful one. And the best advice that we can give you in this situation is insist on objective standards. Obviously, this is much easier said than done, but the best tool that you can use in this situation is to insist on objective standards. Our 14th principle is another one rooted in human psychology, as we are telling you that people are more motivated to go further distance when there is a risk of a loss instead of a potential gain of an equal size. Therefore, show them what they can lose instead of what they could gain. One of the best skills that you as a negotiator can have in your arsenal is an ability to disagree with your counterparty without being disagreeable. And this can give you many options. The most important is it will force your adversary to think for you, to invent a solution for your mutual problem. And the most important, it will force your adversary to negotiate with himself. And I will give you an example from Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. If you are in a negotiation and you are faced with a proposition that you just cannot accept, instead of saying just plain and simple no, you have other options. You can say, for example, how am I supposed to do that? But pay attention to the tone. I'm not attacking my opponent. I'm not saying, how am I supposed to do that? No, I'm really asking for help from him. I'm asking him, how am I supposed to do that? Before I introduce our last principle, if you like this video so far, please like it and consider subscribing to this channel so we can continue with our work. That being said, our last principle, our 16th principle is, and this is the most important if you want that your negotiated agreement to actually be implemented, and the principle is always allow your adversary a possibility to save face, which is never force your adversary to choose between doing the right thing and saving his face. We are convinced that you wouldn't like his choice. Beside our 16 negotiation principles, part of our negotiation framework are also 4 universal negotiation truths, or axioms, or whatever you want to call them. And as I said, they are not here to call you for action. Instead, they are here to make your life as a negotiator easier. And they are: all power is based on perception, almost everything is negotiable, deadlines are usually not binding, and no is just an opening bargaining position. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel and comment below so we can exchange our ideas and discuss different negotiation strategies. See you in the next video.